Good morning and welcome to Meeting's Cybersecurity Challenge. My name is John Slye and I'm with Deltek. I'm an advisory research analyst, which is a fancy name for saying I'm a market researcher. So what I'd like to spend the time with you this morning is talking about what agencies are doing to meet the cybersecurity challenge, both at the federal and the state and local level. As I progress through the presentation, if you've got questions, there will be some question and answer time afterward. So there is a box at the bottom of your screen where you can type in questions and we will take them at the end of the presentation. So there'll be some live chat at the end of the presentation where we can get some questions answered. So, as we go, I'd like to talk to you about what are some of the challenges that agencies are facing, what are some of the things that they are doing to meet the cybersecurity challenge, and then what agencies and vendors can do to work together to solve the challenges. What are they looking for? We do a fair amount of market research both at the federal and the state and local level. We talk to agency professionals, both at the senior C level within organizations, all the way down to into the individual offices that are handling the agency cybersecurity. So let's get started. If I were to put this on the screen, most of us by now would know what this is referring to. Recently we've seen the Heartbleed vulnerability exposed within SSL encryption. And this is widespread, both commercial as well as agency, federal and state and local agencies. While initially the U.S. CERT, Department of Homeland Security, said that no federal agencies were impacted, no customer-facing, if you will, citizen-facing agencies were affected, they are releasing guidance for agencies to go back and check and patch. So this gives us one more example of what we're facing out in the world today. Is the bad guys are coming after our data, they're coming after our information, they're coming after our money, and this is impacting both commercial side as well as governments. We're in this together. We're in this together. So ultimately, what we're looking at is agencies that are facing threats from both the inside and the outside. This is both within the outside with criminal intent, malicious intent for both non-state actors, as well as governments and militaries are attempting to penetrate our networks, and they're succeeding. From without, we see vulnerabilities introduced into systems from hardware and software that they purchased in good faith that have security patch flaws or backdoors in. From the inside, we're looking at poor cyber hygiene. You hear about the unwitting user that picks up a flash drive from somewhere they find on the way, and curiosity kills the cat. They can't help but plug it in and introduce vulnerabilities into their system. Also, the area we've heard so much about recently is with the exfiltration, the insider threat. So threats are coming from all sides. So what is this producing within our agencies? Well, an 800% increase in cybersecurity reported incidents in the last 5 or 6 years. It has really ramped up in our ability not only to, we're experiencing greater threats, but we're also getting better at detecting them. So while this is a huge climb, it's not entirely a bleak picture because we're getting better at detecting. So this is a mixed bag here. But the threats are increased, they're persistent. I don't need to tell you that, you're living in that world. Well, where is it impacting us? Well, it's impacting us predominantly in the areas of penetration, malicious code insert. Those three areas: improper usage of our insider people, as well as from the outside, malicious code insertions, as well as unauthorized access from outside and from within. It makes up over 60% of our vulnerabilities that are reported to the U.S. CERT. The 38% under investigation shows us that we're still struggling to figure out, okay, what's happening within our networks. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we go. Well, what agencies are doing to try to identify what's going on within our networks, and how do we kind of shrink that under investigation number so that we can better identify, better address, and remediate these threats. So looking at all these threats, what are agencies, what do they need, what are they using to address these? So we've polled our government users from the C level all the way down into the offices that are practicing the CISOs, etc. And this is what they've told us. These are the areas that agencies, as well as the vendors that are serving them, are seeing what their greatest needs are. And what do we see? We see things like intrusion detection, the need to be able to securely share information, managing identities and access so that the right people can get to the right information and the wrong people cannot. All of these areas that we see in the top 5 really come down to really core cybersecurity. So core cybersecurity needs continue to be a demand. You've heard the expression the 80-20 rule. I've heard some say that if agencies would simply do the core cybersecurity of keeping their patches together and deploying the root and the root intrusion as well as layers within the software, etc., they would take care of 80% of the cybersecurity threats. So the question is what are they doing to try to do this? And it brings down to our most valuable resource that we've got, and that's our people. Agencies will spend probably about 90 cents on a dollar right now, according to OMB, for what they're doing with cybersecurity. The rest of it, they spread across things like risk management, cybersecurity tools, training of both inside their security workforce as well as outside the everyday user to know when to recognize phishing emails, when to recognize threats that are coming in from without. You can see here that the spread about 90%. If we take DoD out of that, because Defense Department tends to be heavy in the personnel side for this, it brings it down somewhat to maybe about 75%, but still at a 75 cents on the dollar for cybersecurity. Our people are our best resources, but there's ways to improve our use of them so that we can, it's a kind of an unsustainable long-term model. We need to be able to give our people that work hard the tools and the skills and the processes they need to really get the maximum value out of them. You can see on the right side of the screen, the mix between federal workers and contract support. Okay, anywhere from 60-40, 70-30, depending on whether you're civilian or defense. We're in this together. Ultimately, the takeaway from this, agencies are looking to contracted vendors to provide support, and vendors are looking to bring the right skills to support their customers. This is a shared problem, like we saw earlier with Heartbleed. This is not just something that was going to impact commercial entities. It's going to impact both government as well as commercial entities as well. But we need a way to bring our people and maximize the value that they have, and so that brings us to policy side. Whether we've seen the presidential directives, as well as the NIST 800 frameworks, etc., that come out of the policies, one of the key themes that we keep hearing from both federal and state and local is policy really is driving this. We need to be able to get to a sense of what are our common standards for security. How are we going to do some shared approaches? How can we share information in a way that protects privacy, it limits liability, it gets things that where we can solve problems more quickly, we can remediate more quickly. So we've seen things come out of the White House, we've seen DHS, we've seen policies come out and standards come out of NIST, and so that's one of the areas that we've seen a tremendous amount of work over the last really 3 to 4 years, and it continues to progress and mature. And this has bled over in not only into the government side of traditional cybersecurity, but also into the critical infrastructure side. How do we harden our infrastructure around power and water, utilities, etc. Okay, so we've seen, we're talking about people, we're talking about policy. Let's talk about the areas of technology. And this is where I'd like to really talk about where we come together as the vendor community and the government community comes together. There's been a tremendous amount of disruptive technologies introduced into the IT landscape over the last several years. We've seen the growth of cloud computing, where we are looking to achieve economies and reduce our infrastructure and get a hold of our data. And it's been, so far it's been, well, I'm not so sure about putting my data in the cloud. I want to either create my own, or maybe I'll move toward a hybrid or create a private. But I'm a little bit reticent to move toward a public side, and what data will I do that? Those kinds of questions bring immediate security concerns to the discussion. We've seen some progress in that. We've seen, a few years ago the question was, well, there's no way I would go to the cloud because I can't control my data, I can't secure it. We've seen some progression in certain areas where it's like, oh, well, cloud may be the best way to secure the data because we can keep it, keep it behind the appropriate security protocols. So cloud is an evolving process, and it's driving not only economies within the technology side, but it's also driving the policies, the standards, and the investments within the security side as well. Mobility. Mobility has huge implications within security. Whether it be organizationally owned BlackBerries or other devices, or whether it's bring your own device. Agencies are wrestling with how do we secure devices? How do we allow and maximize the value of having mobile solutions that can really improve productivity with our workforce? But how do we secure that? How do we make sure that the data is safe at rest and in transit and in use? How do we, if we don't own the device, with the bring your own device, what happens if that device is compromised, is lost? How do we reach in, wipe the data that we need to wipe for that? So we're wrestling with that. The sheer explosion of data, proliferation of data, big data. How do we manage that data? How do we then secure that data? And also, how do we leverage it? So there's the issue of data from the perspective of how do we secure it? How do we store it? How do we make sure that only the right people access it? But then we've seen also the growth of how do we mine this data for security purposes. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second with analytics. And ultimately, then with infrastructure consolidation, we've seen the move to press toward data center consolidation, virtualization. Those sorts of technologies really are transforming the way we consider data center. The need to move toward a greener solution, the need to control our energy consumption, our footprint, those kinds of things, all have security implications. So what are agencies doing with this? First and foremost, we're looking at areas of network awareness and continuous monitoring. We've seen just this year the award, the BPA out of GSA and DHS for the continuous diagnostic and mitigation BPA. That's really focused on how do we set up a continuous awareness of what's going on within our networks. And so we're seeing movement on that. And I remember hearing John Stroifert talk about this $6 billion, he kind of referred to it as a down payment. So this is just the beginning of, I think, the investment with government in continuous monitoring. I talked about analytics. I'm just going to hop across the way to analytics. With the big data revolution, we've got a lot of usage data, network data, forensics data that we need to be able to mine. And so agencies are looking to how can I look at what's going on within my network and going on, how do I take that information and then turn it around into proactive information? So they're looking for feeds on what's going on within their network. The challenge that I'm hearing is that they get a lot of data from different sources. How do they compile that in such a way that it provides a useful picture? So that's where we see some of the movements towards dashboards, to be able to build dashboards and take data feeds from different areas and really make sense of it, because again, all of our people are very busy. We need to be able to leverage the tools and the technologies to be able to give the information so that they can use their time and their intellect to make the decisions on what to do when seconds count. Automation. This brings it back to automation. If we can take our people and give them the freedom to be able to do the analysis that they need, to be able to do the response in real time that they need, we need to be able to free them up from doing some of the mundane chores, as well as the routine things. So automation is a major thrust that we hear that agencies are looking for. Automation with control. They want to know what's going on behind the black box, and they want to understand so that they can tweak it, because no agency is identical in their needs. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about layered security. This is where we talk about there's no one area of security that is really going to be sufficient to really set you up, to minimize your risk posture. So it used to be, we think about the moat, you build the moat outside the castle, that's your network defenses. That's very important, and that's still, needed and useful. But we always know that somebody's going to be able to get across that moat. And so we need to be able to track them, we need to be able to use encryption and use identity to be able to make sure that they can get places where they can't get to places depending on what their user credentials are. And ultimately, we're looking at security down at the data element level. Agencies are looking at ways they can embed security at the individual data point levels, so that even if somebody can penetrate past the network, past the system access defenses, that once they get to the data level, there's yet another layer of protection. And then with education and training, it really is a combination of how do we improve our people? It takes years to develop a really truly seasoned cybersecurity person. We see this both in civilian agencies as well as Defense Department agencies. We can get people in the pipeline, but it really is there's an art and a science to cyber, and so we're hearing that that people, we can't grow them fast enough. Even if we backfill them with really talented people from university and industry, there's still a chance we still need to get people. So we need to increase that curve. We also need to increase the user training and awareness so that they don't do things that are poor hygiene, if you will, in cyber. So where does this take us? Agencies are looking for these. Vendors provide some of these. What are some of the things that both of us in this shared environment really need to be looking for as we go forward? What should we consider? You're going to have the opportunity today to wander through the virtual halls and talk with different vendors and get their angle on what do they bring to the table, and you're going to be able to present your perspective on what's my pain, what's keeping me awake at night. And so here are some of the things that we see shifting within this market space. We're letting go of this sense of what is secure. We realize that the only way to be secure is to be completely cut off from the world with your networks, and that's just not practical. That's not how we're going to get things done. So we need to move more from a secure mindset to a risk management mindset. How are we going to share our risk? How are we going to mitigate our risk? And how are we going to pick what are the things to die for versus the things to kind of just monitor and take care of? Moving from a reactive perspective to a proactive perspective. So this is trying to get ahead of the challenge. This is probably in some ways the biggest challenge, because as we saw with Heartbleed, you hit it, you hear it, and all of a sudden everyone is changing their passwords, and everyone it's been going in existence and known for a while, but it just finally breaks and we have to react to it. We've got to get to a point where we can anticipate these things and take proactive measures, and there's ways that we can do that. Moving from a bolt-on to embedded, we see this in some of the SCAP tools. We see this in agile development as we move toward more more quick and modular development of software and systems. We need to be thinking about how do we embed security as we go. So it's rather than slipping it out in the back, which is important, we also need to be looking as we develop and go forward. We build solutions together, how they're secure. From single to multi-layer, kind of talked about that, but also in that area of the moving target. This is another area of the layered security where, well, we know that we can't completely be secure back to our risk, so let's keep our data moving so we can move the data between things. Cloud is really good for this, to be able to move, and so that they can never quite get a fix on the crown jewels data that they're looking for. And then, of course, from periodic to continuous monitoring, we really need to get a sense where, and we're working toward this sense of what is really going on at any one point in our networks, and how can we build that feedback loop into so that we can get ahead of it and proactively respond. All this is looking at how we can reduce risk, both of data loss and theft, as well as commercial loss, and ultimately too is this area of economies. The 75 cents on the dollar for people is a tough model to maintain over the long haul, and especially within the federal space as governments continue to constrict their budgets. The latest IT budget for 2015 is a couple $2 billion shy of what it was last year. It's flat compared to 2 years ago. So within the federal world, we're looking at continued pressure to keep things constricted. Within the state and local level, we're seeing a little more give as economies are rebounding and states are getting some more tax revenues. So they were lean a few years ago when they really had to put the brakes on things. Now as things are kind of loosening up and they've gone through some of their efficiency measures, what you're seeing now is now that we're getting a little more money, cybersecurity is our #1 priority. One of our talks with a county CIO, state and local CIO, his attitude was, and he says, if you've got $1 to spend it on cybersecurity. So this is an area, that we see some real opportunity within the state and local, and it's, I think, to what they've been through the last few years, I think that they're happy to see a little bit of give in that. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you. I'm going to turn it over to our hosts, and we can do Q&A. Once again, if you've got a question, please put it into the box below, and I'll be here to answer your questions. Thank you.